For our first speaker, Dr. Collada, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Anthony Collada. I'm a general psychiatrist. I have a private practice in Roseville. I also work in consultation at the Mercy Hospital System, mostly Mercy San Juan. And then I recently became clerkship director for the third year medical student rotation. So, nice to meet you guys. I may not be on the whole time today, although you can email me, anthony.collada@cnsu.edu, for anything that comes up.
Thank you, Dr. Collada. Next.
Notes, and that is so true. The face-to-face interactions that we have, especially this is an all-outpatient year. Being able to sit in the room and being able to be present and really hold a lot of the pain that is expressed is something really special. And when you touch on something that's meaningful in a therapeutic sense and it really resonates, I think it's a feeling that's more rewarding than anything else. And I think that ability to develop a relationship with somebody longitudinally over time in a really deep way is what makes this field special compared to all the other medical specialties. And just from what I've experienced this year, I felt like I haven't been able to do that with every patient, but when it does happen, and when it happens on a deep level, on a meaningful level, and when you see the change over time, it's something really, really special. And so being able to spend the time to kind of develop that relationship and sit in the room with people when they're going through really difficult times is so rewarding. And the only downside, of course, is the note that you have to write at the end.
You said that your field of work or what you were doing was like the toughest of the toughest cases. Why would you say that it's like the toughest, like the sort of the field that you work in? What makes it so like rigorous and difficult, I guess?
Yeah. I would say maybe I'm just, I just mean that, of course, it's not as tough as, I'm dealing with kids before typically they get schizophrenia. So I'm just dealing with, because it's Medi-Cal, unimaginable trauma to the parents, to the kids, torture, murdered people. And so because of that, it's so entrenched. It's so, the pathology is so bad for so long that it's very tough. So you can't just simply slap on a pill and expect things to get better. So bottom line is, that's what I mean by tough. When I say full service car wash, I'm talking about you have these other people involved in it. But I love what Stephen said, which is people get better. I think I would quit if I couldn't help people get better. So I'd say maybe schizophrenia and those sort of long-term disorders take more out of you. But I feel we make amazing progress. And many of my kids come off pills. I'm always trying to get them off pills over time. So just that itself is rewarding. And you have these, like, some of the very tough ones, Munchausen by proxy kids, where the parents have made them ill. They are tough. They're tough and hard to work with. But I just love I'm a team player. So I love that we're all interacting and you're talking to schools, sometimes teachers. I've been to IEP meetings. I'm talking to the police. I've been in a courtroom. So there's so many different elements and facets to it. So it's very complex, and I like that complexity.
How do you compartmentalize, given that you're dealing with such deep-rooted trauma and just sort of like wide-ranging trauma, right? Like you said, like murder, torture, even like Munchausen patients. Like, how do you compartmentalize, given that it's so heavy and so deep?
Yeah, and that's why residency is this long. Someone has asked me the same question. So bottom line is, to be an adult psychiatrist, it's 4 years. That's a lot of time. You end up knowing about 30 to 40 pills very well. That's it, right? It doesn't take 4 years to know that, right? So to me, especially in residency, you start learning how to care enough and walk that tightrope between caring too much and caring too little, and learning how much you can handle. You also learn boundaries. So my boundary is I don't bring my work home. I never do. Sometimes I get calls about covering a doctor's medicine, but I choose to work only 3 days a week. I can, pay my bills on 3 days a week. So I choose to totally allow my brain to be relaxed in family. but I do not bring work home. And I was telling, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but there was one time when I had a very bad case where I had to go and talk to the judge, and I brought the chart home, which broke my own rule. And that very night I had nightmares. So it shows that you build up this facade, this sort of boundary around you. And if you do it right and you learn how to do it, someone's supervising you, by the way. So if you have therapy patients in Samatea, someone will always say, oh, and they said this and you did what? And so you learn and are held by the hand and guided. But I was telling the other students that I would care the most if you didn't care. If you didn't care, I would say it's very hard. But once you care, learning to curb it is something you learn in school. So I don't come and start crying despite the horrible cases. Yet I do care. I'm there for them when I'm there. So I hope that answers the question.
It definitely does. Thank you.
Okay.
What if a child is in crisis or something happens while you're at home and off hours? Would you respond to that, or do you just wait until you're back in there?
You know, I have a cool job where I'm with 5 other child psychiatrists, right? So if it's not Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, and if it's not 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or whatever, I don't deal with it directly. The parents are told there's a 24-hour number. They call the number with our agency, and they're told, take the kid to the hospital. So because I don't work at a hospital, I don't have to deal, basically. So they're safe. That doesn't mean that, once I hear about it, I typically try and collaborate with the doctors. But it's not my problem, if you will. I'm just called in when there's an issue about the meds or anything like that. But I don't take anything outside of my hours. And you will have, there's such a huge need for child psychiatrists. You can pretty much cherry pick exactly what the heck you want to do. And most of us do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Some do private practice, some do some hospital work. So it's just a matter of finding out what you want, and there will be an option to do it. So I don't take call.
And dealing with childhood trauma, how often do you feel like you're able to kind of like separate the trauma from the child because they're so young and they're developing when this stuff is happening, that I imagine it influences how they're growing up? Is there a way, or have you been able to, is it common to kind of separate the two and help the child kind of come out of that and discover like more of their own identity outside of it?
Well, that's a really hard question to answer, because because I see so many of these kids and they're so traumatized, I don't think of it as separate. I think that this kid who's screaming and poking other kids is a product of that trauma. So it's very hard to try and separate it. It's made the person who they are. It's made them do the things they do, whether it be, I basically think the trauma does one of two things. Either the kids act out and just want to kill the whole world, or they just internalize and then they're depressed and anxious. So really people sort out into those two. But once you work with people who are so good at...
Maybe I can jump on that one a little bit. Something that I didn't know was valuable, but in retrospect, I'm really glad my program has, is a focus and an allowance for us as psychiatrists to be able to do therapy. The field is often seen as going towards just prescribing medicines, and the focus is kind of moved away from therapy. Many around, but there are at least 2 or 3 in this area. And so if you're interested in psychoanalysis, psychodynamics, and if you want to be able to spend time really getting to know your patients in that therapeutic sense, then a program that allows you to do that is going to be really important, as opposed to a program that just kind of makes you see as many patients as possible for med management. And so the military has been great in that way. We have a certain number of therapy hours each week. They train us in a broad variety of therapeutic modalities, and that I think has been really special. Our program pays for a training psychotherapist so that we can get our own therapy while in the program. I think we're pretty unique in that way. I'm not sure if other programs around the country do the same thing, but those might be things to ask during your interviews. Does this program have a therapy focus or a therapy allowance? And then also, is there any way that we could be allowed to get our own therapy over the course of the next couple of years to help us better understand ourselves and what's going on as we take care of our patients?
Yeah, I can also add on to that. All these questions have been really good so far. I'm like about 3.5 years outside of residency. I agree with what Stephen was saying, in that therapy is important, even though a psychiatrist has to know the medications and the biological and medical stuff. I really appreciated my training in psychodynamic therapy. Also, there's other types of therapy, so that may be important to look for in a program. Also, a psychiatric emergency room experience. Not all residencies have that option, although it is really a big issue nowadays because psychiatric hospitals are limited. And also, depending on like your style of, if a university program will have medical students that can teach and may be more academically focused than such as only a community-based program. Also, you could take a look at a variety of hospital settings. Sometimes there's like a veterans hospital you get experience with, a state hospital which will have sort of a different type of psychopathology than a public hospital. I mean, that's just from my experience. To get like, I'm maybe a little bit biased because I feel I had a good training. Although those are just my thoughts.
I add that in my program, I chose it for two reasons. One was that it was explicitly multicultural, so they made quite a lot out of that. In fact, the residents were, and they had clinics that were directed toward refugees, where we got to see a lot of different people from different backgrounds and deal with different kinds of trauma, like torture, political torture. And that was a really great opportunity. Another thing that you might look at is how much exposure to child psychiatry they get. In my program, we did quite a bit of child psychiatry in the general psychiatry years. So,
and transpersonal, our residency sort of specialized in that. And then also, someone mentioned a diversity of settings. University hospital, VA, state hospital, and Dr. Rubin and I, we also had a great experience at a private, kind of posh private hospital where we rotated for 6 months, and the patients stayed on the inpatient unit for weeks, and we saw that we had to see them every day, and we really got a good, really in-depth look at what intensive therapy, everyday contact could do, and these were invaluable experiences. So I'd say flexibility is great, and diversity.
In the third place, did psychiatry first, fell in love with it, thought, oh, I guess all of third year is going to be this awesome. And so I was surprised, and the residency director came to me and he said, you know, Lally, you've really got this inquiring mind. You're writing 3 notes a day on a patient. That's, that's whack, basically. But he basically said, if you want a letter and decide to go into psychiatry, I'll write you a letter. And I said, thanks, but I'm going to Pete's. So what I'm trying to say is it was that much of a big step to me. So I actually went to a few psychiatry meetings. Like, are they really all weird? Does this work make you strange? I really had to know for myself. And then I went into pediatrics, and I'm looking in people's ears, and I'm seeing temperatures, and it just seems so cookie cutter in some ways. And I realized my brain was something that liked to play with the gray, not with the black and white. I didn't want to just know, here's a pill for this disorder. I wanted to think, darn, how do I get to this very hard to reach person? And I love that I'm learning about the world from different points of view. So it's a two-way street.
I can share my experience a little bit. I didn't know right away. It took a lot of reflection, a lot of prayer, I was kind of influenced a little bit by my dad's a family practice, my mom's a neurologist, so I was leaning towards those. Although during my college years, I read a few books from psychiatrists. You guys might have heard of one, Dr. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. It's a really influential, powerful book. He essentially talks about how some people have survived the conditions in the concentration camps while others did not. And he really looked at finding a meaning or purpose in life. And so that really resonated with me at the time. I didn't think like, oh, I'm going to be a psychiatrist because I read that. But going forward, like, I enjoyed talking with the patients during the rotation. I was a neuroscience major in college, and so I just really like reflected a lot about it, prayed about it, and sort of been able to put those pieces together, that this would be the best best field for me. So it seems to have fit so far. There's a lot of opportunities. It's pretty well paid, as the people are saying, a lot of flexibility. You can essentially work in any major city in the United States. Not all specialties have that luxury at this time. So I really enjoyed your guys' talk. I'm sorry I'm gonna go a little bit early, but I'll probably see you guys in the near future. So, thanks,
Dr.
guys.
Collada,
Yeah.
before you go, I just want to relate an anecdote. I had a patient, my last patient of the day today. I had recommended Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning to him. He read it and then passed it along to somebody else who had recently lost her husband. And so that book seems to reverberate the more that it's recommended to people. And I definitely second that recommendation.
Nice. Awesome. All right. See you guys.